In the 2002 American movie Catch Me If You Can, Frank was a successful doctor, pilot, and French teacher, all without an actual degree. He was able to con the public and authorities into believing he was who he claimed to be by creating fake resumes and showing sheer bravado. One would think such stuff could only happen in the movies. However, one man from South Africa proved this was possible in real life, and for a relatively long time, he got away with the scam. Daniel Mthimkhulu took fake it till you make it to another level by installing himself as one of the most important engineers in South Africa with nothing but a high school education and giant guts. His story reflects what a desperate person could achieve with street smarts in a broken system when push comes to shove. Daniel Mthimkhulu was born in 1975. Not much is known about his upbringing or place of birth, as he created a new identity for himself. However, he grew up in a time when South Africa was dominated by the whites and the blacks were forced to live like second-class citizens. He decided to change what was the norm, regardless of what it took, even if it cost him the truth. Railway services in South Africa date back to 1910, when South Africa was unified as one entity, and consequently, the South African Railways and Harbors was formed. After several decades of reclassification and restructuring, the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, PIRASA, was founded in 1990, roughly 15 years after Mthimkhulu was born. Before then, the white South Africans were in charge of the railway services in South Africa. The Reformed Railway Commission revolutionized railway services in the country, and there was finally a chance for a black man to head the organization someday. This was made probable by the fact that the famous anti-apartheid activist Nelson Mandela had been released from prison and the Black Empowering Party African National Congress, ANC, was gaining grounds. Fast forward to the year 2000, a 25-year-old Mthimkhulu began working in PRASA as a junior official. No one bothered verifying his qualifications at that time, and he didn't create any cause for suspicion. He just went with the flow. As a junior PRASA agent, Mthimkhulu was hardworking and loyal to his superiors. He also displayed great reasoning on his own and knew how to politely impress his bosses with his big ideas. All these made it easy for him to gradually but steadily move up the ranks. As he became more important and visible in PRASA, his salary increased. No one knew that Mthimkhulu only completed his high school education. Other people would have tried to hide their visibility if they knew they had faked it to get in, but Mthimkhulu loved the spotlight and attention. Things had gone smoothly for him for 10 years without a shred of doubt from his superiors. So, he believed he had become untouchable and nothing could go wrong. In 2010, a new opportunity opened up. This was one that could give Mthimkhulu all he ever dreamed of, a path to wealth he could seize for himself even without the hassle of going to the university. Mthimkhulu's determination and willpower weren't going to let him miss out on what seemed to be a miraculous opening. So, he stepped forward to act. In March 2010, the position of Executive Manager Engineering Services at PRASA became available to interested candidates who were qualified enough. Since he already worked at PRASA, Mthimkhulu knew about the opening and requirements before it was publicly advertised on the job boards. The only problem was that he didn't meet the minimum requirements. So, he decided to give himself the necessary qualifications and even more through the back door. When the opening was finally made public, Mthimkhulu applied for the role with several prestigious mechanical engineering certificates that couldn't be overlooked. On his CV, he claimed to have a master's engineering degree from South Africa's renowned Witwatersrand University, a national diploma and Bachelor of Technology degree from Vaal University of Technology, and a doctorate degree from a German university known as Technische Universität München. The hiring managers and HR team couldn't believe they had such talent in their ranks, all these while without taking advantage of his expertise. He also impressed them during the interview session, and their initial doubts turned into great marvel. Without wasting further time, they appointed Mthimkhulu to the position on April 1st, 2010. Naturally, the new role came with a significantly higher salary. Still, Mthimkhulu wanted more. Instead of trying to directly negotiate with the team, he turned to his cunning nature for assistance again. On September 14th, 2010, just 4 months after he assumed the position, he showed PRASA a letter from a German company in which he was offered employment. According to PRASA, it was a letter from an institution called DB Schenker, which turned out to be fake. PRASA couldn't bear having their most qualified worker leave them for greener pastures, so they made a counter-offer to Mr. Mthimkhulu, increasing his salary to 2.8 million rands per year, which is equivalent to 156,000 US dollars or 119,000 pounds. Mthimkhulu became a symbol of black South African excellence in his workplace and South Africa at large. He was praised for choosing to work for his country's railway agency instead of accepting the mouth-watering foreign job. In no time, they began consulting and seeking advice from him before embarking on any project. Although Mthimkhulu was smart, there's always how far you can go with deception if you provided false qualification details in your application. The cracks didn't gradually build up. They caught even the culprit by surprise and left him unable to do anything much to protect himself. Between 2010 and 2014, Mthimkhulu enjoyed his role as the chief engineering exec of PRASA. Nothing much was going on. All he needed to do was to passively give them administrative tips. Meanwhile, he received huge paychecks for that. In 2015, PRASA decided to expand their fleet of passenger trains. Naturally, the project to build the Afro 4000 locomotives, which was what the trains were supposed to be called, was spearheaded by Mthimkhulu. The project cost around 600 million rands at the time. The Afro 4000 locomotives, along with the larger Swifambo rail leasing project, were supposed to restructure and revamp the South African railway services. The overall contract was billed at 3.5 billion rands. Mthimkhulu decided to order dozens of trains for the project from Spain, not taking into account that the railway system in Spain was much different from South Africa's. An actual elite mechanical engineer would have known this in time and made a more appropriate decision. However, Mthimkhulu's ignorance of basic railway and train compatibility requirements ruined the project. The trains he ordered turned out to be flawed in design, as they were too tall for the standard platforms across the rail network on which the agency operates. Eventually, the trains could not be used for the purpose for which they were built, and additional modification work had to be done to bring them to the correct standard. And this resulted in more cost than they originally budgeted, spending a total of 2 billion rands on the trains and rails due to the repair to the damages brought about by the mistake. This great display of poor judgment and knowledge from Mthimkhulu led the big players of South Africa's railway agencies to start questioning Mthimkhulu's quality and training. Did he really attend those top universities he claimed to have attended? Did the German company really seek his service back then in 2010? Was he really a mechanical engineer in the first place? Everything he had told and showed them initially to get the role began falling like dominoes. The public, who had gotten wind of the issue at PRASA, also joined in the backlash of Mthimkhulu. However, the then CEO of PRASA Lucky Montana still had his back. In a press briefing, he praised Mthimkhulu and debunked the media reports that it was Mthimkhulu's fault for the purchase of faulty trains that did not meet the basic standards of South Africa's existing rail network. Montana also claimed that Mthimkhulu was being sought by many countries around the world for his expertise and was the leading engineer in rolling stock. He added that Mthimkhulu's authority and quality were being undermined because he is black. Still, Montana's theatrics weren't enough to save Mthimkhulu from the blames, insults, and rising scrutiny. At this time, many private investigators and news outlets had begun drawing attention to Mthimkhulu's educational background and alleged membership of the Engineering Council of South Africa, ECSA. What seemed like just another conspiracy theory at first began sounding more plausible and attracting more believers. Amidst the mounting pressure, the company and the authorities began conducting their own investigations on Mthimkhulu. PRASA specially created an inquiry committee that would look into his qualifications. Mthimkhulu was notified about the investigation in a letter, which read as follows: Dear Dr. Mthimkhulu, the company has noted allegations leveled against you, which have been the subject of recent media reports. Please be advised that the company has decided to institute a formal inquiry into the allegations relating to your qualifications and the registration issue with the Engineering Council of South Africa, ECSA. You are therefore kindly requested to furnish me with all copies of your qualifications, which will be checked against company records by close of business on Tuesday, 14th July 2015, before the inquiry can get underway. As Mthimkhulu had been pinched where he didn't want to be touched, he called in sick the next day. A few days later, he sent an envelope containing 2 certificates and a letter in compliance with the request to submit the qualifications to the office of the panel chairman, Mr. Mofi. In the envelope were 3 documents: a certificate headed Technicon Val Triangle Nationale Diploma Engineering Mechanical, another certificate titled Technicon Val Triangle Baccalaureus Technologiae Engineering Maintenance, and a letter from the Technische Universiteit München referring to Mthimkhulu as Dr. Mthimkhulu. The letter read as follows: To whom it may concern. We confirm that Dr. Daniel Mthimkhulu obtained this recognition since he did his research work in Germany as part of the collaboration with the Technische Universität München. Focusing and specializing in rolling stock and networks, This serves as recognition for his great contributions. Testimonials can be sorted from various experts in the field. Sincerely, signed, Professor Freudenstein. Although these 3 documents were carefully made to look like true copies, Prasa now believed that they were forged. Further inquiries were made at Technikon, and Prasa found out that although Mthimkhulu had been registered for a national diploma in mechanical engineering at the Technikon, he never completed the course. The same company that had once spoken highly of Mthimkhulu and given him the prestigious role decided that these were sufficient grounds to suspend Mthimkhulu. A letter of suspension was sent to Mthimkhulu by email, and he responded by tendering his resignation, hoping that this would reduce the shame and calm things down. However, Prasa advised him to serve his full calendar month's notice, as was required by the company's policy. They informed him that his resignation would only be effective at the end of August 2015. Meanwhile, the disciplinary process against Mthimkhulu commenced. Mthimkhulu didn't bother attending the process to clear his name or provide explanations. He was found guilty and given notice of termination of his employment with Prasa. That same 2015, Mthimkhulu was arrested, and South Africa's elite Hawks police became involved in the case. The gravity of Mthimkhulu's crime and the complexity of the case made it difficult for the court to solve on time, so they kept dwelling on the matter for years. In 2019, the case was taken to the South Gauteng High Court, Johannesburg. Despite several postponements in the case to enable Mthimkhulu to bring his witnesses to court, he called no witnesses and ended up testifying by himself. He told the court that he grew organically through the ranks of Prasa. According to him, he already held the position of general manager in 2010 when he was called to see the head of human resources, Mr. Mthimkhulu Ramuthla. Mr. Ramuthla explained that the business was restructuring and would merge with Metrorail, another rail company. He added that Mr. Ramuthla gave him a letter himself to announce that he had been appointed to the position of executive manager, which he accepted. According to Mthimkhulu, there was no advert, no application process, and no interview. He claimed that he was appointed solely on the basis of his experience, previous performance, and skills. He also denied that it was possible to have made any representations about his qualifications, or for Prasa to have been induced by those representations. The court also learned that on 16 September 2010, Prasa increased Mr. Mthimkhulu's annual salary in terms of the appointment, with effect from 1st September 2010, to the sum of 2.8 million rands. Mthimkhulu denied receiving a job offer from DB Schenker, but attempted to give his version of what was behind the salary increase. According to him, he was given an increase because another German company, P-Tech System, had made him an offer of 200,000 euros. Again, the court deduced that Mthimkhulu, at the time of his appointment, did not hold a national diploma and a bachelor's degree from the Vaal University of Technology, VUT, as claimed, and only had a matric qualification. He only completed the diploma after he was dismissed. Mthimkhulu later accepted that any statement made before July 2015 that he had completed a national diploma and a bachelor's degree from the VUT was false. However, he denied that he had ever made such a statement. Prasa, on the other hand, maintained that he had included this information in his CV, which was one of the documents found in the personnel file received from the payroll office. Under the heading Personal Profile in the CV he submitted, the following was noted: Mechanical Engineering Diploma, Vail Triangle University of Technology, 1998, Degree in Mechanical and Maintenance Engineering, Witwatersrand University, 1999, Maintenance Specialist, pursuing doctorate degree, master's degree in engineering, mechanical and electrical, 2006, and doctoral degree in engineering. Management, 2010. Still, Mthimkhulu denied that it was his CV or that he was responsible for the information included in the CV. He testified that he didn't know where the CV came from. When the judge asked him how the CV made its way into his personal file, he claimed that many people employed at Prasa, who were bent on destroying his career, fabricated the CV and placed it into his personal file. After reviewing the available documents and other evidence, the judge concluded that Mthimkhulu made a very poor impression in the witness box. According to the judge, he was evasive and his testimony was incoherent and not supported by any extrinsic evidence. His evidence in its totality is rejected as false. The various witnesses that he stated he would call to support him failed to appear. The only inference that can reasonably be drawn from their failure to testify is that they were not prepared to give untruthful evidence in Mr. Mthimkhulu's defense. The judge also concluded that Prasa had suffered significant damages and losses as a result of Mthimkhulu's fraudulent practice. The total amount of financial losses, at the very least, amounted to about 5.8 million rands. The amount reflected the total of the additional payments made by Prasa to Mthimkhulu as a result of having been deceived to increase his salary. The judge also supported Prasa's request for the costs to be repaid by Mthimkhulu, agreeing that it was warranted due to the nature of the fraud and his conduct during the trial. The total costs he was asked to repay included the approximate 5.8 million rands. The interest on the sum at the prescribed rate of 9% per annum from the date of service of the summons to date of payment. He was also ordered to pay the court fees, which included the costs on the scale between attorney and client and the costs brought about by the employment of two counsel. In an interview with a local broadcaster following the court case in 2019, Mthimkhulu admitted on air that he didn't have a PhD. In his words, "I failed to correct the perception that I have it. I just became comfortable with the title. I did not foresee any damages as a result of this." After he failed to comply with the Special Commercial Crimes Court's order for him to pay back 5.8 million rands of the 15 million rands he had earned in his position, the Asset Forfeiture Unit seized some of his property in early 2024. The final blow of the case against Mthimkhulu came in September 2024, when he was sentenced to 15 years direct imprisonment for faking his qualifications and defrauding a company. This penalty carries the maximum jail term for fraud in South Africa. The sentence was supported by the public, and many renowned onlookers felt it was justified and a step in the right direction. According to Findi Majonandwan, the spokesperson for the National Prosecuting Authority, NPA, the sentence sends a strong message that the perpetrators of white-collar crime will not go unpunished. She added that the court took into account the seriousness and prevalence of fraud, the significant financial loss to Prasa, and Mthimkhulu's betrayal of his employer's trust. Similarly, the head of South Africa's Elite Hawks Police Unit, Lieutenant General Seswancho Godfrey Lebeya, also applauded the court's final verdict. He said, "This should serve as a lesson to would-be fraudsters that crime doesn't pay." The senior state advocate in the case, Sithembiso Bengu, also argued that Mthimkhulu's actions had a negative impact on ordinary South Africans who missed out on potential benefits from the funds he fraudulently received from Prasa and seriously damaged the reputation of the company. He added there were no circumstances that justified the imposition of a lighter sentence and that Mthimkhulu had not taken responsibility or shown remorse for his dishonest action. On social media, the public perception was pretty much the same. One user on X shared that Daniel Mthimkhulu's story is proof of a failing administration system. Not a lot of companies use qualification verification systems. We definitely have a lot more people working with fraudulent qualifications than we think, he also wrote. Since the sentence was made, Mthimkhulu is reportedly planning to appeal. The sad truth is that it's difficult to see any way out of this mess for him. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.